All right, so let's take a look at protists now. Protists are single-celled eukaryotic organisms. There's a wide variety of these guys. Most protozoans are free-living, so we don't have to deal with them, but some are parasitic. So this is showing an amoeba. An amoeba is a protozoan here, protist. So let's look at how protists came to be, or the eukaryotic cell came to be. So looking at evolution of the eukaryotes. And this is through what is known as the endosymbiont theory. And this states that a eukaryotic cell evolved from a larger prokaryotic cell engulfing a once free-living organism. An endosymbiont is an organism that can only live within another organism. There are two parts to this. One is the origin of the nucleus in the endomembrane system, and the other is the origin of the energy-related organelles, which are the mitochondria and chloroplasts. So how we got the endomembrane system was caused by an invagination or folding inward of the plasma membrane, okay? And so now we can find bacteria that look like this guy and this guy. They have all these membranes, which are known as respiratory membranes. And so why you would do this is because if you have, what we do on our plasma membranes is we put enzymes on them. And so by having the enzymes on there, we can have chemical reactions. Well, if you have more enzymes, you can have more chemical reactions. So that's what these respiratory membranes are. And so eventually this led to a nucleus, which is the membrane around the DNA, and then more membranes, which became the rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus. Okay? And in this cell, so the second part here is the origin of the energy-related organelles, the mitochondria and the chloroplasts. So this cell then engulfed an aerobic bacterium, and that then became the mitochondrion, and then that cell later on engulfed one of these cyanobacteria, photosynthetic bacteria, and this led off to the algae and the plants. Okay? So let's look at evidences for this. Both mitochondria and chloroplasts are similar in size and shape to bacteria. Next, they both have RNA that is similar to bacterial RNA. They both have their own ribosomes, so they can make their own proteins. They both divide by splitting like bacteria, so doing binary fission. And they do this separately from the cell. So typically when a cell is going to divide into two cells, it kind of doubles up on its organelles. That's not always the case with the mitochondria and chloroplasts. Both are double membraned. So the inner membrane is the remnant of the plasma membrane of the bacterium, and then the outer membrane is a remnant of the vesicle from the plasma membrane of the larger cell. All right? And lastly, and this is the kicker here, is that both contain DNA. So the chloroplasts, their DNA is similar to cyanobacteria. So if we were going to put them in a family tree, they would be over there with the cyanobacteria, not by where their host cell is. Next is mitochondria. Mitochondria is similar to a specific genus of bacteria, and that's called Rickettsia. Okay? So here's the thing. We can find bacteria that are like this. We can find eukaryotic cells that are like this. They don't have mitochondria or chloroplasts. We can also find protists that are like this, but this line of protists led to the animals and to the fungus, and then this line of protists, which we can find protists that are like this, they're algae. This also led to the plants. All right, so let's take a look at cellular structure. All right, so one is that we have a cytoplasm. Oh, this is just more of that stuff. So, all right. So one, we have a cytoplasm. So in that cytoplasm, we have an ectoplasm, and this is a clear outer layer. So out here, this is used in locomotion, feeding, and protection. The cell shape can remain constant or change. So, with amoebas, it changes there. And then we have an endoplasm, which is a granular inner region, and that houses the organelles. So, okay. So nutrition, protozoans are heterotrophic and feed upon a variety of living and dead materials, and their habitat is water to moist environments. If we look at their life cycle, this is their life cycle. They have a trophozoite, so that's a trophozoite. So these are motile feeding stage of the protozoan. This requires food and water to remain active, but then they can go into a cyst stage, which is kind of like the endospore with the bacterium. This is a dormant resting stage. This occurs when the environment becomes unfavorable. So the ectoplasm secretes a tough, thick cuticle around the cell. So that's what we see there. Okay. And then some protozoans only exist as trophozoites, while others alternate between the trophozoite and the cyst stages. So, like, you know, if it's an organism that lives in an environment that dries up, well, obviously it does a cyst stage. If that environment never dries up, then it doesn't need to. Reproduction. Reproduction, they can be asexual. One cell divides into two cells by mitosis. Or sexual reproduction. These cells make gametes, and then the gametes fuse. So that's what we're looking at with this one here. And then conjugation. This exchanges genetic material between another individual. So, okay. So, you know, that's what we see over there. All right. So, next, let's look at the types of protists. So the first are diplomonads. So this is a diplomonad here. These are heterotrophic protists that have mitochondria without DNA. They respire anaerobically. This is Giardia intestinalis. This is a waterborne protist that causes diarrhea. Next are, so this is Giardia actually. So if we move on here, this is a pair of bacillids. These are heterotrophic protists that have modified mitochondria. They're facultative aerobes. Trichomonas vaginalis, which causes trichomoniasis. That's actually this. It was on the wrong stuff. That's an STD. This feeds on the white blood cells and bacteria living on the lining of the vagina. Next are euglenozoans. These are flagellated protists. There's a fairly large group. This is Trypanosoma. This causes African sleeping sickness, which is a blood disease. This is spread by the tsetse fly, or tsetse fly. Next are dinoflagellates. These are in marine and freshwater phytoplankton. In dinoflagellate blooms, they can turn the water pinkish orange. This is called red tide. The toxins released by the dinoflagellates can kill fish. So this is one of those there. So next are apicomplexans. These are parasites of animals and humans. Plasmodium, that's the parasite that causes malaria, is one of these. So this is showing malaria there with the Plasmodium. This is a stemenophile. These are protists named for their hairy flagella. You can see the flagella coming out there. They have numerous flagella. These are typically called water molds. They decompose dead plants and animals in fresh water. Some water molds are parasitic on fish skin or gills. Sometimes it's called ick. Some are parasitic of plants, so they produce a downy mildew like potato blight. And then amoebas, these move and feed by pseudopods. That's these structures, they're sticking out there are pseudopods. These are temporary extensions of the cell. So amoebic dysentery is an example there.